All right, we're back. All right, so back with the second part of the big Ranking the Kiss albums. This is Paul Bertolino, and you may recall on the previous segment, or on the previous part, that I didn't even have a name for this channel yet. Well, I've decided to call the channel the Sound Lunchbox. And, of course, the Partridge Family had Sound Magazine. Well, this is the Sound Lunchbox. And lunchboxes are way cooler than magazines anyway, right? So anyway, let's just get right into the top 10 here. As you may recall, if you watched the previous part, I got from numbers 24 to number 11. So I really kind of did the bulk of the list on the previous part. But this is the top 10. This is the meat and the potatoes. This is where the real stuff comes in, okay? All right, so let's go right in with number 10. This is the album where I started with Kiss. This is where I first discovered them. And, the album kind of should be a little higher on the list, or if you'd asked me maybe 10 years ago, or especially when I was a kid, it would have been much higher. And, but, time passes, tastes change, albums, go up and down on the list in your mind there, and, now it's coming in at number 10. And this album is Destroyer. Yeah. Destroyer, yeah, at number 10. The first time I ever laid eyes on Kiss was running across Destroyer in 1976 at Woolworth. I was in the record section, and there it was right there in front of me, and I didn't even know what to make of it. I just picked up this record, and I just stared at it, and I didn't even know what I was looking at. It was just like, wait, is this a band? Is this a horror film soundtrack? What is this? And I was 6. I was 6 at the time, and I didn't realize that it was a painting. I thought it was a real photo. And I didn't know they were wearing makeup. I just thought they were freaks with like some sort of deformity, and that they just all four just somehow were these guys with these kind of faces who found each other. Yeah, the crazy shit that you think when you're 6. But 1 second here. Okay. Yeah, anyway, we're going to go with that. Sorry, having a behind-the-scenes technical difficulty that I'm not going to even bother with. We're going to keep going here. So that was where I got on. Although, when I ran into that album that day, as intrigued as I was, I didn't buy the album. I was 6. I didn't have just the option to just go to the counter and just buy it. I just kind of filed it away in my brain as something that I wanted to know about, and that I was like, okay, we'll deal with this later. Well, then, come about a month or so later, Kiss was on the Paul Lynde Halloween special, as you may recall. And I sat right down in front of the TV and I watched that, and there was Kiss in real life, and larger than life, right in front of my naked, steaming eyes on the television. And that was it. I decided I was in. I needed to have a Kiss album. And the only Kiss album I knew of in existence was Destroyer. So when my birthday was coming a couple months later and I said I wanted a Kiss album for my birthday, Destroyer was what I meant. So on my birthday, my dad, I was at my dad's girlfriend's house, okay? My parents were divorced, and my dad gave me my present. It was wrapped, but it's a record. When you get a wrapped record, you know what you're getting. And I tore it open, and it was Rock and Roll Over. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was a little disappointed because I had wanted Destroyer, but he got me a Kiss album, and there was this, and I was like, okay, all right. And then his girlfriend said, oh, well, I have this here. She had Destroyer, which she had bought because Beth was on it, but she didn't like the rest of the album. So she said, oh, you can have this one too if you want. And I was like, woo, now we're talking. This is the one. So right there in one fell swoop, Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over on my birthday, December 1976. And that's the beginning of it all right there. Number 9 is, Paul Stanley. Yeah, the Paul Stanley solo album. Now, the Paul Stanley solo album was the last of the 4 I got. And, you would think that would be one of the first ones. I'd get Gene and Paul, but no, I got Paul Stanley last. And there were 2 things that were kind of factoring into my decisions as to which one to get next as I was going along, because I didn't get them all at once. I got Gene's first because he was just my favorite member at the time. Because I was a kid, blood spitting and fire and all that kind of shit. He just looked the coolest. So I got Gene's first. But the covers was the main thing. I liked the the paintings on the covers and the colors, the visuals of the covers was what kind of was a big thing for me. Like, I liked, obviously, Gene's the most, so I got his first. And Paul's was the least interesting to me because the purple was my least favorite of the four colors, and I just thought that picture, that image on the front cover was the least interesting. And this brings us to the other thing that made me choose Paul's last. I was choosing the albums based on how intrigued I was by how they would sound. Because I knew what Paul Stanley's was going to sound like. I thought, oh yeah, it's going to sound like I Stole Your Love, or I Want You. It's going to be that kind of stuff. I already know what this is going to sound like. It's just going to sound like a regular Kiss album. But Ace, what's that going to sound like? So I got that early. And, but, in the end, Paul Stanley's album is pretty great, and he does do some other kinds of stuff besides just what would be on Kiss albums. So, he stretched out a little bit. But basically, it's a pretty Kiss-like album, right? And a good one. Okay, coming in at number 8, Gene Simmons. Yeah, Gene Simmons, back-to-back with Paul Stanley. Now, I know a lot of you would not put Gene up this high, and certainly wouldn't put it above Paul Stanley's. Gene's album doesn't seem to be that well-liked amongst the army, but I really love the Gene album. In fact, that as I already mentioned, that was the very first one I ever got, and I just... I wasn't, like I had said earlier down lower in the list with Peter's album, I was kind of listening to a lot of pop and a lot of different kind of stuff, so I wasn't really put off by it not being that Kiss-like. And, stuff like See You Tonight didn't bother me. Of course, everybody kind of likes that song anyway, it's because it's a great song. But, Always With You, Always Knew You Know Where to Hide, True Confessions, Tunnel of Love, I didn't have any problem with any of that stuff. And so I always really liked that album from the get-go, and I still really love it today. Clearly, I have it at number 8, so what are you going to do? Okay, so coming in at number 7, we have Dressed to Kill. Woohoo! Yeah, Dressed to Kill. Now, when I was buying Kiss albums, of course, obviously I started with Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over, like I mentioned, and then I would move forward with the new stuff that came out, mostly. I would also have to try to reach back and get the stuff, the back catalog, and that was a much more of a slow process than you would think. Because, I was a kid. I couldn't just buy records anytime I wanted to. It was often long periods of time before I would be able to get another record. Because I would rely on, saving up money, allowance, or, whenever an adult, my mom or an aunt or an uncle, felt like just buying a record for me for no reason. Or Christmas or whatever. But Dressed to Kill, I ended up getting pretty late. I don't think I got that until 80, 81. And, but the cover was always just there, just like in the back of my mind, like, ooh, Dressed to Kill, the one where they're in suits. But they're just always, every time it was time for me to go get another Kiss album, something else always won out for some reason. And, but, I don't think I even liked that album that much when I first got it. As far as going back and getting the earlier Kiss albums, I think that had been my least favorite back then. I loved Room Service, and I've always loved Come On and Love Me. I mean, that's my favorite song on the album. Love Her All I Can, Rock Bottom. But there was a lot of stuff that I found weak when I was a kid, like Two Timer and Ladies in Waiting and Anything from My Baby and Getaway. All songs that I still kind of consider weaker Kiss songs, but I like them a lot more now. And, yeah. I don't know. So Dressed to Kill is kind of a weird album in that way. It's kind of like a really great, high-ranking Kiss album that kind of, if I'm going to be real, doesn't have really as good of songs. Actually, to be honest, I probably should have put it lower than Gene or Paul's albums. But yeah, seriously. Anyway. All right, so coming in at number 6, Dynasty. Yeah, Dynasty. Now, Dynasty came out in 1979 when I was 9, and I was pretty much at my absolute peak of obsessing over Kiss as a kid when Dynasty came out. It had been 3 years that I'd been into them, but it had been kind of a long, slow climb. And by the time Dynasty came out, it was just like my entire life revolved around Kiss. And, posters and lunchboxes and the dolls, and I bought 16 magazine every single month, like clockwork. I mean, I got to the point where there was a shopping center kind of across the street and around the corner from the apartment that I grew up in, and I got to the point where I knew exactly how early in the month or what time of the month or what day of the week, I don't remember what it was, that I could go to Albertsons, the grocery store over there, and go to their magazines and get the new 16. I tried to get it to the exact day. And yeah, every single month, man, straight over to Albertsons, and I'd get those 16 magazines, and I had all the pinups in the centerfolds on my wall and the whole thing. And I used to draw Kiss. I would get tracing paper. I used to go over to Robert's Variety. I'd buy pads of tracing paper, and I would trace Kiss's faces from pictures without the makeup and look at it and go, ooh, that's what they look like. And I don't have any of those anymore. So now that I actually know what they look like, I can't go back to them and be like, yep, that's exactly right. I don't know how accurate it was, so I never really knew. But in fact, speaking of 16 magazine, I actually sent one of my tracing paper pictures. I had traced Peter's face from the solo album, minus the makeup, and I sent it into the magazine asking them if this was what he looked like without makeup. As you may imagine, I never got a response. Okay, so number 5, Love Gun. Yeah, Love Gun. Now, Love Gun is a weird case. As I already mentioned, I got into Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over when they were brand new, got those records, and then I somehow skipped over Love Gun. I don't know how that happened. I think Kiss wasn't really that high on my list in '77 because other things kind of became my obsession that year. I mean, you had Star Wars, you had Saturday Night Fever, and all that kind of stuff, and Kiss kind of took a little bit of a back seat for a little while, and because of that, Wings Over America was a big obsession of mine in '77, and so I didn't skip Love Gun on purpose. I didn't go, oh, a new Kiss album, whatever, I'm not into them anymore. It wasn't that at all. I just wasn't aware of it when it came out, because it was the '70s. You kind of had to be dialed in, really, to know when records were coming out. And I was 7, so I didn't always have the inside scoop about new albums coming out. So yeah, Love Gun I didn't end up getting until 78 or 79, if you can believe it. And then by the time I did get it, there were no more guns. So I've actually, to this day, never actually owned the actual Love Gun, the actual gun that came in the album. And, at this point, I pretty much accept that I'm probably never going to unless I get really lucky and find one at a thrift store or something, because they're just too expensive and I'm not going to spend that kind of money. But yeah, Love Gun, man. I mean, my personal peak of worshiping Kiss may have been Dynasty in 1979, but Kiss's peak, just as an entity, I mean, I think we can all pretty much agree was Love Gun, right? I mean, that was when kind of everything was at its peak. Like, just, the touring, the just Kiss being Kiss, the records being really great, and just everything about Kiss just kind of came to its pinnacle in '77 with Love Gun. Okay, so coming in at number 4, Kiss! The debut album. Yeah, I have Kiss self-titled at number 4. Now, that album, I remember getting... may have been around 1979 when I got that, I want to say. My Aunt Vivian, just one day she just decided out of the blue for no apparent reason that she was going to take me the following week to go to the record store and buy a Kiss album. And, I was 9. A week was a really long time to wait. So I waited out that week, and then come that Friday, I think that's because she was getting paid. That's right, she was getting paid that Friday, and she was going to take me to buy me a record. And so I called her up the night before. We still going tomorrow? And she's like, oh shit, yep, we're still going. And I know she probably had forgotten, but then it was just like, okay, I told the kid we're doing this, gotta do it. So she took me over to Rainbow Records, and it was between Dressed to Kill and the first album, and I stared at both of those albums for the longest time, and in the end I ended up choosing the first album, kind of with the solo album as part of it. The cover, I was really, really in love with the cover of Dressed to Kill, but the first album was really intriguing to me because they looked so weird. the makeup was really different, and the hair was different. Ace's hair was silver, and Paul didn't have bangs, and it was just all very early and rough looking, and it was just really bizarre, and I really wanted to hear what was inside, even though I recognized all the song titles because I already had a live. I didn't know the studio versions. Or I did know the studio versions, a lot of them, because I did have, I had double platinum. Yeah, I don't know, I kind of think it was just purely the cover. It was purely the cover. We got in the car and we're driving away, and my aunt said, "So which one did you get?" And I said, "Well, I got Kiss's first album." She said, "Kiss's first album?" She goes, "Why would you get... Nobody's first album is good. Except Boston," she says. So, there you go. There's a word of advice. Okay, so number 3. So number 3 is Hotter Than Hell! Yeah, Hotter Than Hell. Now that album, man, that has always been one of my very favorite albums. I think that's one that really hasn't moved much from the time I got it when I was a kid. I mean, the moment I listened to that album, I loved every note of it. And, well, to this day, I have it at number 3. This album I also got because of my aunt, the same Aunt Vivian who bought me the first album. I got this album because we were over at a friend of hers' house. I'm a little kid, and I remember there were just some records in the living room, and I was just looking at them, and they had Hotter Than Hell, and I didn't have Hotter Than Hell. And they had like an original Hotter Than Hell with like the dark blue Casablanca label, because by this time they had moved on. I think we were at Dynasty again, and they had the later the later Casablanca labels. So I was really just burying my eyes into this record because there was so much to look at, and I was just obsessed with it. And I don't know who it was. My aunt's friend's brother, I guess maybe it was his or something, and he didn't want it. He's like, "Oh, you can have that record." And I was like, holy shit. It was just like with Destroyer. Like somebody just kind of was like, man, you want that? It's like everybody, all the adults were giving away their Kiss records, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And man, I went home that night, and I just went into my room and I put that record on, and I just devoured every note of that record and just stared at every little bit of all the little images all over the cover. And right away, a favorite. The thing is, it was creepy. It was a really creepy album. I mean, the sound of it is a little dark and a little creepy, but taken with the images and everything, yeah, I mean, I found it especially spooky as a kid, and that was one of the things that I really loved about it, and that's one of the things I love about it today. And I think that's really kind of a thing that's common amongst us Kiss fans. That's kind of what we all love about it, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so coming in at number 2, Rock and Roll Over. Rock and Roll Over. Yeah, I've already talked a bit about that album. As I already mentioned, I got that on my birthday in 1976, the same day I got Destroyer. And, I think at the time, I wasn't as into that album. I was more of a Destroyer fan in 76 and into 77 and, kind of through the 70s, really. Rock and Roll Over is one that has kind of climbed over the years and over the decades. And I would say only maybe in the last 10 years have I come to realize how much I love that one and how above the others I really put that. I mean, song for song, I Want You, Take Me, Calling Dr. Love, I love Ladies Room, although it isn't one of the very best songs on that album. But I mean, come on, Making Love, Love 'Em and Leave 'Em, Mr. Speed, it's just like boom, boom, boom. That's kind of the ultimate Kiss album to me as far as studio albums is concerned. I mean, I know I have it only at number 2, but, when we get to number 1, you'll know why. I mean, really, this is my very favorite Kiss album, if you know what I'm saying. Now, one little story about this from when I had it when I was young. As you know, it came with a sticker. There was a sticker inside that was about maybe a little bit larger than the size of a 7-inch single. And it was in little pieces. It was like a puzzle sticker. You peeled it off, and you could peel it, different parts of it in different places. And I was in elementary school, and I was in class, and I decided one day, I had it with me at school, and I decided to put it on my desk. Like, stick it on my desk. You know, Paul over here in this corner, Gene in this corner, and blah, blah, blah. Well, that was the end of that sticker for me because, well, it was stuck to the desk. And I don't remember getting in trouble for it. I don't really remember what happened. All I know is that that was it. I didn't have my sticker anymore. Anyway, more stupid shit that you do when you're 6, right? All right, so number 1, my all-time number 1 Kiss album. My very, very tip-top of the whole list. Ace Frehley. I'm sure you probably figured it out by now. I mean, by process of elimination. Yeah, that's right. Ace Frehley's solo album. His 1978 solo album is my very favorite Kiss album. Yeah, I know technically it's not a Kiss album, but I like it better than all the Kiss albums. So Rock and Roll Over is technically my favorite Kiss album, but my favorite, as Dr. Fuck says, my favorite Kiss album, or my favorite album with the Kiss logo on it, is the Ace album. So we're both in agreement with that, old Dak. Yeah, I mean, now Aces was the second solo album I got. After Gene's, I decided that Aces was the one that intrigued me most. I loved the color, I loved the blue, I loved the painting of them on the cover, it looked so cool, and as I mentioned, I was just shrouded in mystery as to what an Ace Frehley solo album would sound like. And I remember getting that and taking it home and putting it on the record player and putting on my headphones, and it was immediate. The impact was immediate. Like right away, boom, there's Rip It Out. What are you gonna do? I mean, what are you gonna say? I mean, that's just as good as it gets right there. Song for song for song. I'll take that album as a whole over not only any other solo album, but any other Kiss album. Absolutely. Yeah. And I had the pleasure of seeing the Ace Frehley solo album performance that he did just a couple years ago in New Jersey. He came out to there was the Kiss convention, and he played the solo album live in its entirety for the first time. And I don't know if he's done it since, but I went out there and met my friend Jonathan Fenno. Shout out. You guys, some of you guys know who he is. Yeah, I went out there and met him, and we saw Ace do the solo album live in its entirety. You know, it could have been better on a technical level, but to see him live in front of me playing that album that I've loved since 1978, it was kind of a special thing. It was really a special thing. That's one of those things that I really wish he could have done back when he could have done a better job of it. And but you know, the fact that he did it all and the fact that I was able to see it is it's pretty cool. And yeah, so there you go. My ranking the Kiss albums right there. And so, all right. Well, I don't know where I'm going to go from here. I'm still kind of finding my way with this channel thing. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't know even why I'm even doing any of this, other than just sometimes it seems like a fun activity. With all the bullshit lately, with everybody being, quarantined and all this crap, and everything being closed down because we're all going to, catch the plague, you end up sitting in your apartment going, what am I going to do now? Yeah, why don't I make a video? So here you go. All right. Well, I'll see you next time on whatever video I decide to make, whenever I decide to make it.